All right. I've been told to let her rip. Here we go. Another episode of What's Good Under the Hood. Rob Sanders of Fox Sports Radio 1400. We're off to a
You
great
messed that
start.
up, didn't you?
And from Mazda of Columbia, I will not goof this up. The owner of Mazda of Columbia, our friend Greg Hood. What's good under the hood, dude?
Rob may not be able to find his studio now because you messed that up so bad. He'll be somewhere else. I'm looking for Fox News.
Rob's in the
scoreboard,
dark.
Whatever.
We can't see you hardly.
Yeah,
very
yeah,
well.
but he's good looking, devil.
Yeah.
Good looking.
I'm trying
That's
to be
right.
trying to be like I'm a short guy, so I can't be tall, dark, and mysterious. So I'm just gonna be mysterious.
Short, dark, and mysterious. Yeah.
Right.
I think we're going to lead with this question today because I find it interesting as well. Is the aluminum shortage from our friends in China going to affect the ability to buy a car here in the U.S. of A?
Man, do you have to be Debbie Downer? You know, the everything's a shortage right now. But yeah, you know, and here's what it's from. It's from lack of magnesium, which is used to make transmissions and cases and all that kind of stuff. And also, I guess it goes into making aluminum. But the problem is they're not having a shortage of the material. It was something I alluded to. I think it was in last week's podcast that the Chinese are having an energy problem. So if they can't, they're shutting down plants because they don't have the energy to run. Because remember, I said I did talk about it, the coal that they had the deal with Australia that fell apart. And anyway, so they're having all these problems. And yeah, there's going to be one more thing that hits us in the forehead. So it feels like we just can't win no matter what. And we're just sitting here waiting for it. We want to pay for it. You guys want a car, but they're not delivering.
Can I ask you a question, Greg? And I'm going to share something with the audience here. And look, if you see me in public, I'm not going to show it to you. But if you look at my lower back, I have an American flag tattooed on my lower back.
Because I thought you were going to say you had a butterfly tattoo.
No, sir.
That's a different place.
I want everyone to know that I am USA absolutely all the way. I mean, Hulk Hogan was my hero when I was a kid. Him and Sergeant Slaughter before he got with the Iraqis. My question to you, sir, why are we buying aluminum from China? Can't we have some American aluminum in our cars? Is that far-fetched?
Well, it all revolves around economics. I mean, all those decisions were made by somebody a long time ago of where they're getting what they're getting. You know, we had the previous administration was trying to bring things home, and they had a different take on how it was done. I do think that with the world economy, that a lot of companies, big companies, did not quite protect themselves maybe as well as they should, because everything was flowing, everything was working the way it was supposed to, and they're thinking, hey, this is a good deal, and we're getting cheaper labor, we're getting cheaper materials, and so they'll head to where it's less money. But does that mean that they won't move? No, they will. And you know, economies drive that. There may be other places, whether it be America or somewhere else, where they can get the materials they need. The problem is there's a ramp up in that. So even if you know, say they wanted to buy materials from Canada, and I don't even know they could deliver it, but they would have to ramp up to the capacity that they need. So there's going to be a gap in that no matter what we do. So, you know, there are consequences for all those choices that companies make, that we make, and the stuff that we buy and where it comes from. I mean, I'm American and I'm proud to be an American. And I sell a Japanese car. So now go figure. But they are making them in America as well. So they're not just being made in Japan. And
But
so
that
once again, that makes it a blended economy for us, for them, for everybody in the world. What was your question, Andy?
I forgot.
You said, what is in that vape that you're hitting? Is it just if you forgot that quick?
I'm not saying that.
Wow.
But we don't make aluminum in the United States of America?
No, I think we do. But I don't think we make much of it. I mean, you go back to, wasn't it Reynolds aluminum? I believe. Listen, I'm not an expert on metal, but I know they made it here at one point. But I'm pretty sure Reynolds aluminum was making it in the United States. But you know, they'll move. I mean, they do. They have people that sit around and figure out whether it's economical to go elsewhere to do what they do and make as much money as they can. That's business.
So like you said, there's going to be a ramp up time to get this stuff back together. Does that mean next year is going to be tough, like this year has said, or has been in the auto industry? Reports are saying that it's going to be like that.
Yeah. You know, I hope not. I hope that we get back to some kind of normalcy. I hate saying that term, the new normal, because that's not the new normal. The normal for us is being innovators and pushing forward. And when we meet challenges, we figure out a ways to go around or go through them, not go around them, or maybe go around them a little. But we as a country are very resilient, so we will find solutions to it. But I don't control manufacturing thoughts and costs and sourcing and all that stuff. But if China is the predominant player in that market, then it will shift somewhere else. But then they also have to do a calculation of how soon will China be able to get back on their feet if that's their major supplier. And if they're able to make it for a lot less money than they would in, I don't know. I mean, I used the word Malaysia last year, but our last podcast, maybe that's a place where they can make it. I don't know. But if their energy comes back where they're able to have their plants open up again and it's cheaper than the other place, then they would invest all that money and then have to shut it down. So they're trying to figure it out, I'm sure.
But we're not seeing a shortage. We're not seeing a shortage in soda pop cans, in Coke, Pepsi,
well,
Lehigh orange soda cans.
You may. I mean, this is just warming up. This is just now happening where the electrical grid over there is having problems where they're shutting it down. So, in China, the government can make that decision. Bam, you're shut down. So my mom is out visiting me, and she called me this morning and said, hey, the power just went off. And I knew the bill was paid, so I was pretty good there. But I did double check just to make sure, and it did. But, they were out tree trimming, but they didn't bother to tell me. And they probably should have notified me that they were going to turn off the power. But anyway, my mom was without power for 20 minutes. But can you imagine living in a country where the government decides when you're going to have it, and they don't care whether you're cooking dinner? I mean, they're not interested. They shut it down, and you get shut down. And if you have a business and your business can't run, it doesn't run. So it's just that simple.
That's why I have an American flag
California.
on my lower back. That's exactly why. Because we don't put up with that here. It's about freedom.
Wow. Okay. Fireworks going off in Rob's office. I
like
it.
That's right. Bing, bing, bing.
Yep. All right. What else you got?
Is Rob. Rob, you got anything, or do you want me to continue on? Because I do have another question. Sure. Working an auto plant now becoming a job nobody wants. Is that a kind of a labor nobody wants to do? People are quitting their jobs by the millions nowadays. Is putting these things together going to be?
I don't know. That also revolves around economics. I promise you that if they pay anybody enough money, they'll do the job. So I'm hearing a lot of stuff about the millions of people that are bailing out of the workforce. And I still, for the life of me, can't figure out why, because the money is not flowing right now from the government in terms of stimulus money or, from the COVID, that money is long dried up. So I don't understand why everybody's finding the exit at their job. There is a shortage of labor. There's no doubt. We're seeing it everywhere. I did see an article this morning I thought was kind of weird, that a guy was applied for 20 jobs where they said they were hiring. And these were, jobs that were just basic labor jobs that he was qualified for. And he said out of 20, I think he said 6 or 7 called him, and only one scheduled an interview with him. And that was a labor job, and it was $10 an hour. And he went to the interview, and they offered him $8.50 or whatever the minimum wage was for a month until they could see if he worked out to pay him 10. I thought that was rather interesting, because $8.50 isn't much. And but it is, economies of scale. It's how things work. And if somebody pays enough, they can get somebody to work in their factory. And I don't think a factory job is a bad job, working in an automotive plant. So I'm not sure.
We're hearing and all that. You have the unions and all that taken care of you.
Not all of them are union. The ones up in Detroit are, but I'm not even sure the BMW plant here in South Carolina is a union plant. I don't think it is. So there are some. I know the ones down in Alabama are not. Or I'm pretty sure. I don't want to be wrong, but I'm pretty sure they're not. So, but they still pay a good wage. I mean, I guarantee those jobs are over $20 an hour. And when you're living in a place where it's pretty inexpensive to live, they don't. If you notice, they didn't put plants in the middle of Los Angeles. because they couldn't afford the real estate and they couldn't afford the labor. And, but, they put them out in Alabama where it's more rural and it's cheaper, and they have a pretty good labor force and they can get the job done. So I'm not hearing us having a problem of finding people to make cars. That has not been a subject that has hit us in the forehead at Mazda.
Well, that's good news.
It is.
So I guess the answer to that question is no. It's not going to be something that we're
I don't
dealing
think
with
so.
on a
I
big
think
level
I think
next year.
I think they'll solve it. And money will solve everything when it comes to that. I think they'll solve that issue if they are having a problem. If they're paying 20 and they can't get anybody, they'll start bumping it up, and maybe it's 25 as that tipping point that gets people to work. And I don't know what their scale is, but I'm sure they'll work it out. But there is a downside to that, and it's a pass through. It ends up somewhere else. It ends up in the cost of a vehicle, or less incentives, or whatever it is, whatever calculation they do.
Makes
Do you
sense.
think that the labor shortage could eventually hit the consumer in the back pocket where, like right now, it seems like people are holding on to their cars, but if you get to a point where you're going to buy a new car, I mean, obviously, if they're paying them more, I mean, somebody's got to pay for that. Does that end up eventually getting back to the customer?
Absolutely. I mean, it definitely flows through when taxes go up. It ends up in the customer, to the consumer. I can't remember what the press secretary's name is, that redhead, but she made the comment that she didn't understand why they're claiming that taxes increases would affect the cost of goods.
Jen Psaki.
Yeah, thank you. I just had a
Sure.
brain freeze there, but
Anytime I can help.
thank you. You're the best. But it does. I mean, I'm a businessman, so I understand what happens if there's an expense there. We don't just suffer through the expense. We're going to have to either make more gross profit to offset those costs in order to be profitable. We're just not going to do this for fun. We are not a tax write-off of 501c3. We're a for-profit company, and most companies are. So you have to wait to do it, but there is a path through to that. You asked me a question earlier, Rob. We were talking about this proposal of $1 trillion, was it $1 trillion or the $3.5 trillion that they're trying to pass, and how it impacted the car business. What was the question you asked me?
The question was that basically when you look at it from the things that I've read, the way it's going to affect some cars, there's going to be different safety measures that are going to be put into cars, and
Right.
then emissions and things like that. I mean, eventually that's going to all come back to the consumer, I would think.
It certainly will. Yeah. So that particular bill that they were trying to pass as I don't think it was part of the budget. I think it's that supplemental thing that they're trying to do. And it was 3.5 trillion. Then it was down to $1 trillion. And I don't know where they're at in it. I'm not really paying attention to that. But as part of that bill, they were talking about requiring automotive manufacturers to do certain standards. And they had to do with safety as well as environmental stuff. And when it comes to safety issues, they were talking about putting in, the autonomous driving stuff where, it stops the car for you if you're going to get in a wreck, or that, it has lane control. And that stuff isn't bad. And, the manufacturer, this is my opinion I'm going to give you. This is obviously an opinion forum here, but it's just me talking. It's not my manufacturer, my company. But, these manufacturers went out and developed some of these safety items. And I know a lot of people out there now have cars where if you're going to rear end somebody, it hits the brakes for you. And that's pretty darn cool. But there's an expense to that, And so if you're out and you're trying to buy a car for your kid, or you're on a real severe budget and you're going to buy a Mazda 3, or you want to buy a Toyota Corolla or a Yaris or whatever they're selling now. I don't know what the cheap stuff is there. You're facing costs in that car and trying to buy it, if you put too much stuff in it, they're unobtainium. People can't afford to buy them. So the government has a tendency to think, oh, well, because I said, well, you should do this, Nave, you take care of this and put it in there. Well, it costs something. It costs the manufacturer something. They've already done the research and development, and they were doing it to help save us and to do good things. But that doesn't mean that it's affordable to everybody. Now, if every car has it, just through economies of scale the costs of those items will probably come down a little bit. But if it costs $1,000 to put that system in a car, okay, so it comes down to $800, but there's $18 a month in your payment because most people don't pay cash for a car. They're going to make a payment. So it severely impacts all of us. And, when we sit and negotiate with customers all the time about, trying to not put a square peg in a round hole, to put them in the right car for the right money and the right payment, and the right price and all that. And when you get $18 here and $20 there and $30 here because the government says you got to have this, 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 and this, now all of a sudden you're talking about $60 or $55 a month. Listen, to a lot of people, $55 a month makes a difference of whether they're, eating spaghetti or top ramen. They're both made out of some kind of pasta, but one's a whole lot better than the other. So,
Or drinking Tito's or Svedka. That's a big choice too.
you know what? That is so correct.
See, it
You
is.
drink the
It is.
cheap stuff.
I do.
But,
'Cause after the first 3 or 4, you don't really know. You don't really know just the difference.
well, so how do we trick people in the car business then? Give them a Tito's?
Well, we'll work on that. In the next episode, we're gonna delve into what inspired Greg to get into the car business. That should be good. The next go round of what's good under the hood. Greg Hood of Mazda of Columbia, Rob Sanders of Fox Sports Radio, AM 1400. I'm Andy Woods. Thanks for listening and watching today.